The movie starts with Eric Berglund, a young man with superpowers he can't control, walking after walking somewhere in the Norwegian forest. After a while, he makes a tent with some plastics and sleeps. He is then awakened from a nightmare that causes his tent and some of the forest to burn. The fire had died out, but not before causing burning his leg. Then, he goes into town and breaks into a clinic to get some bandages. After carefully wrapping the bandage around the wound in a gas station bathroom, he looks himself in the mirror. He looks dirty, and his hair has grown and changed his appearance. He cuts his hair and does what he can for himself. He then begins down the road, presumably back to the woods. While Eric was on his way, a group of teenagers in a car stopped at the side of the road and began to harass him. He tries to walk away quietly, but one of the boys, Ole, gets out of the car and confronts him. He starts to irritate him, but Eric gives him a warning not to touch him. The boy grabs him by the collar and then collapses to the ground. The boy is dead, and Eric gets away. A girl from the group calls the police. Eric is later picked up from a bus station by the police. Christine, a young psychologist whose one of her patients committed suicide, is called to the police station to speak to Eric. The officer in charge, Henrik, tells her to get Eric to talk before the crime unit arrives to take him away. He briefs her on the identity of Eric. It is revealed that Eric is a Norwegian-American backpacker who is a suspect in an unsolved fire that killed 5 people 3 years ago at a farm in Ardal, Norway. After hearing the testimony of the teenagers who witnessed the death of the boy, they want to know how the boy suddenly died without anyone touching him. Christine gets into the interrogation room and convinces Eric, who was sitting squirming on the floor in a corner, to sit at a table. After mentioning his long Norwegian ancestry, she starts to speak to Eric about the fire at the farm. The people who died were his relatives, and he has been traveling in the woods searching for his family after the incident. Christine gets one of the police officers to remove his cuffs to make Eric more comfortable. While the interview is going on in the interrogation room, Henrik, who was listening in the next room, is called outside to see the parents of the boy. He consoles the parents and receives news that the crime unit is bringing an American from the embassy and they are going to take him to America. Back in the interrogation room, Eric admits to killing his relatives and killing the boy. When she asks how he did it, Eric shows Christine his powers by lifting the water inside the cup. She is shocked by what is happening and asks Eric how he is doing it, but he tells her he doesn't know. Eric then starts to get agitated. He burns the table and melts the cup of water, and sparks of electricity start to be seen in the room. Christine realizes that his powers are tied to his emotions. She tells him to control his emotions and breath. She manages to calm him down, but some part of the police station is damaged and a little fire is seen on the walls. Meanwhile, the US Embassy has arrived to take Eric back to America. Agent Cora Hathaway, the representative of the embassy, is in charge of this extraction. Despite their protest of Christine, Henrik hands Eric to the Americans, telling her he has got no choice. After seeing the damage he did, he agrees to be sedated. He takes the injection and sedates himself. While Agent Hathaway and her team were taking Eric to Oslo in a helicopter, Eric starts to burn up, indicating the sedatives have worn off. He starts to panic after seeing that he is not able to move because of his restraints. Cora sees the thunderstorm outside and tries to calm him down, and just before they are about to give him another dose, a bolt of lightning strikes the helicopter and kills the other 3 people except Cora. The plane goes down into the sea. Eric discovers he can swim underwater. Then, he burns his restraint and saves Agent Hathaway, dragging her to the shore. After he pumps the water out of her chest, he leaves the area. Major news outlets in Norway are reporting the crash, and divers are still in search of Eric. Christine, who just heard about the crash in the news and was about to go find him, meets him at her car. She takes him to her friend's cabin. While he cleans his wounds, they speak about the fire on the farm. He tells her that it happened suddenly and doesn't know much about it. After their conversation, he goes to sleep on the couch peacefully for the first time since the woods. Back in the hospital, Agent Hathaway is awake and tells the police about what happened in the helicopter. She tells Henrik that she saw with her own eyes Eric creating the storm and causing it to crash. She mentions that it is important that they find him and get him under control. At the cabin, Christine makes a call to her friend and tries to explain the situation, saying it is not Eric's fault, but her friend advises her to call the police. She also cautions her against making a decision that could ruin her life. Christine almost makes the call, but hangs up immediately without speaking. Eric is now awake and has a conversation with Christine. Rattled by the situation after she spoke, she tells Eric to turn himself into the police and goes to the porch. Christine suddenly notices a strange thing. The plants that were dry earlier have now grown and blossomed. After they go down a hill and reach Christine's car, Eric tells Christine to go home and thanks her for all she's done for him. But Christine tells him she has changed her mind about going to the police, and instead, she tells him she wants to help him figure out what happened. They decide to go to where it all started, the farm. While they were making a temporary stop at a gas station, Christine saw a police alert with pictures of both Christine and Eric on the news. She quickly goes to her car, only to find Eric missing. She searches and finds him standing in the middle of the road. They get into her car, and on the road, Eric explains what happened to him. Eric had a vision. This has been happening to him since the incident at the farm. Eric reveals these visions are not from the earth, rather, and this time he saw the sky covered by a tree that spread to the horizon. Christine tells him what she saw happen to the plants and hopes that he can control it. Meanwhile, the police, alerted by the people at the gas station, are onto Eric and Christine. To evade them, Christine drives at a very high speed. They reach a truck traveling at a lower speed, and while Christine tries to overlap the truck, Eric gets stressed and releases a lighting, totaling their car. Eric and Christine make it out alive, and they manage to hitch a ride on the truck by convincing the driver that Eric is sick. He gives them a ride until they reach the Hardanger Bridge. The bridge is now blocked from both sides by police cars. This was done with the insistence of Agent Hathaway, who told the police not to cut him off at the bridge, keeping him from reaching a big city. After seeing that he is surrounded, Eric says his goodbye to Christine and gives himself up. But Christine couldn't let him go. She confronts one of the policemen who was approaching. The policeman captures Christine and lays her on the ground. This triggers Eric, who loses control. He draws bolts of lightning and thunderstorms that cover the sky. Christine tries to calm Eric down, telling him to focus and control his emotions. He uses the lightning to create a fence and then collapses to the ground. Consequently, the weather is back to normal. Christine, with the help of Henrik, takes Eric to the hospital. Henrik reveals the reason why he is helping them. He believes that God has some plan with Eric. Meanwhile, different news outlets are reporting the events on the bridge. People have filmed the event on the bridge, and now the identity and powers of Eric are on full display to the whole country. On their way to the hospital, listening to the radio, Henrik and the group hear that social media is claiming that Eric is the Norse god, Thor. But Agent Hathaway is not on Eric's side. She is convinced that he is out of control, and this will cause chaos among different religions. After communicating with her superiors, she gets approval to get Eric under control using any means necessary. After reaching the hospital, which is surrounded by the army, Eric loses consciousness, but he wakes up and finds himself in a magnetic resonance imaging machine, which he is not comfortable with, but Christine tries to calm him down. After getting the first imaging, Eric generates a lighting and destroys the machine, and the power goes out in the entire hospital. Nurses immediately report that a boy has gone into cardiac arrest and all the defibrillators are not working. Eric goes to the room of the boy, but he is confronted by Bjorn, who has tracked them down to the hospital. Bjorn holds a gun to Eric, but he can't go through it. He breaks down in the arms of Henrik. Eric reaches the boy's room and saves him. Henrik takes Eric and Christine to the farm, which is fenced to keep the public out. On their way to the farm, Henrik gives Christine a book, which he picked up from the library in the hospital, about northern mythology. Christine reads a page marked Thor the Hammer. The book reveals that after Thor and the other gods died at Ragnarok, his two sons built a farm on the ruins of Asgard to restart their lives and rescue all the knowledge of the gods. This makes Henrik wonder if the book is talking about the same place they are going to, and if Eric is the descendant of Thor. After reaching the farm, Henrik and Christy go to the house that was burnt by Eric 3 years ago, while Eric follows. While he was walking around the burned area, Eric suddenly couldn't move. Christy and Henrik help him move aside. Henrik notices a certain ancient symbol over the area where Eric is standing. Suspecting that there is something underneath, he calls a team to help dig the area. While the area is being dug by a team of professionals using an excavator, Agent Hathaway is in place with her team armed. She has a full tactical team with snipers, monitoring the movement of Eric and those with him. She gives the order to shoot Eric first if anything strange should happen, and escalates the situation. The team has finished digging, and they discover a cave. Eric and Henrik, after telling Eric to wait for them until they check it out, they go into the cave, and they find it to be full of runestones and rocks carved with the Norse language by ancient gods of Thor's children. They also find a depiction of a tree, similar to the one Eric described in his visions. Henrik, who has read about the northern mythology when he was in the hospital, describes the tree. It is called Yggdrasil, the world tree. It shows the 9 worlds in Norse mythology. They also see a box of stone with northern writing. Then, Henrik decides it is time to call Eric. Eric goes into the cave and he is drawn to the box of stone. The box contained Thor's glove, belt, and hammer. Eric wears all the artifacts and holds the hammer, causing a minor electrical storm. This whole time, he was in contact with Christy using a walkie-talkie. She tells him to come up. While she was approaching Eric, she was mistakenly shot and killed by a sniper, who was ordered by Agent Hathaway to shoot Eric after reporting seeing the hammer in his hands. Eric, enraged by Christy's death, uses the hammer and summons an enormous lighting that covers the whole area. It destroyed everything and resulted in many casualties. The movie ends with different news outlets reporting the catastrophe at the farm. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.